You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
This week, I can say the final August edition of the Minor League Baseball podcast. If you were with us last week, I screwed that up. But this week, it really is the final August edition of the Minor League Baseball podcast in 2017. Hi, everybody, and welcome into the latest episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, episode number 125. I'm Tyler Mon. Sam Dykstra's in New York City. Hi, Sam.
Hi, Tyler.
Talking very fast. I feel like I've had a lot of coffee, but I haven't.
What?
I said I'm talking very fast. I feel like I've had a lot of coffee, but I haven't.
I mean, that's fine. That's, it's good to be caffeinated at this point in the afternoon. We should tell everybody what you got to do over this past weekend.
Yeah.
I got to spend time with our good friend and friend of the pod, Josh Jackson, in Albuquerque.
Pacific Coast Bureau Chief.
Yeah.
Josh Jackson. Yeah, no, Josh and I went down to Albuquerque, caught a few Albuquerque Isotopes games against the Salt Lake Bees at Isotopes Park, which is, if you told me that Isotopes Park was built 2 years ago, I would believe you. That facility has been open 15 years now, and it is awesome. If you ever have a chance to make it to Albuquerque and catch some Topes games, that place is fantastic. And yeah, we just kind of, it wasn't really spur of the moment, but it was probably like over the last 3 weeks or so, Josh and I nailed down a trip to go catch some baseball. We did some fly fishing, and it was a ton of fun. Ate way too much New Mexican food. That was really the point of it to me.
all the green chili cheeseburgers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I was a big fan.
That, and then I got to see Josh do his best Breaking Bad imitation.
Yeah.
On Instagram.
Yeah, there is so much good Breaking Bad stuff. I went down there 2 years ago and drove around and saw all the sites, saw Jesse's house and Walt's house and Hank and Marie's house, whatever. This time I didn't really do anything, but Josh caught some of that stuff, wanted a museum, wanted a candy shop where they make a candy that looks like the product in Breaking Bad. It's pretty good. Albuquerque's it's a cool little town. I like it.
He did have me worried, though, that was not candy.
Yeah, it's very lifelike looking.
Yeah, he said he was handing off shifts between, you had the day shift, he had the night shift on Sunday. And he was just like, I brought this stuff back for the two of us. And I was like,
Wait a minute. What's going on there?
Josh, you can't prove to me that that's candy in an Instagram post.
And it was just it really is just crystallized sugar. It's not even a good candy. It's sort of cotton candy flavored, just a block of sugar.
Oh yeah, no, it looks like it should be wrapped around a stick of some sort.
Yeah, but it was something. But put me on a solid 5-year-old sugar high for the rest of the day on Sunday. So it was terrific, which is sort of what I feel like I'm on right now. Episode number 1.
Did you bring some back with you?
Actually, I did bring a little bit back in a bag. Thankfully, I was driving and not flying because I feel like it would have sparked a lot of questions. But we get rolling in episode number 125. Got a good one coming up for you today. Houston area native and Pittsburgh Pirates first rounder Shane Baz will join the show. Shane has been doing his work in the rookie-level Gulf Coast League this week, but obviously his thoughts and the thoughts of so many of us in the baseball community a world away from Florida and wherever so many of the rest of us are located, and with the people of Houston and the surrounding areas with what Hurricane Harvey has wrought in that area. I actually talked with Kyle Tucker last night of the Astros organization, a member of the Corpus Christi Hooks. Corpus Christi thankfully spared a large brunt from the storm this past week when they did get some damaging winds and some rain, but not nearly the flooding or those types of things that we've seen in Houston. The baseball community has started to step forth with what it will do to aid in recovery efforts. Jim Crane and the Houston Astros Foundation have already pledged $4 million for recovery efforts and the assorted rescue operations in Houston as of right now. And there is just so much of the baseball world, guys who grew up in Texas or played their high school ball in Texas or played college ball in Texas. So much of the baseball community is rooted in that state and in the Houston area. And so our thoughts are obviously with the people of Houston and the surrounding areas right now as we go through a brutal week and hope that from here on out, things start to lighten in terms of skies and flooding and everything else that is wreaking havoc in that region right now. So Shane Baz will join the show here coming up in a little bit. We'll talk to him about his hometown and also about a debut season for that young man in the Pittsburgh Pirates organization. Before we get started on Three Strikes this week, again, thanks for tuning in to the final August edition of the show before the show. You can find us at milb.com/podcast. We are on the Stitcher app, as well as Google Play and iTunes Podcasts, and everywhere else you find your podcasts. And that's it. Let's get started. Coming up on Friday, rosters expand to 40 men at the Major League level when we hit September 1st. Call-ups have factored in big ways in recent seasons down the stretch in Major League Baseball playoff pushes. Sam, what are you envisioning in terms of guys who could factor into races as we head into September with expanded rosters at the big league level?
Yeah, some of this is kind of, guys, like you said, who are going to factor into races. September is still a lot to be decided, as much as, we're all gearing up for the minor league playoffs. You do have to catch yourself every once in a while, realize there's still a month of Major League Baseball to go, in which a lot is going to be decided. But some of the things I'm also keeping my eye on is just how prospects are treated in their, in this final month of the season. Sometimes guys are, they're eligible for the Rule 5 draft this year. They're going to be added to a 40-man. We know this because they're probably top 100 prospects. They're too talented to not be protected. So sometimes teams add them to the 40-man roster early, make that move early, give them a little bit of a taste of the majors, and see what they kind of have of them entering, the offseason in the spring, and how they can kind of figure that stuff out going into next season. Are they ready for the majors yet? Do they need a little bit more seasoning at AAA next year? And in that kind of mold, I'm going to be really interested to see what the Phillies do with J.P. Crawford and Scott Kingery. Crawford, as some of you know, has just had an incredible July. Has been really good as well this August. Once he got healthy, he did have a little DL stint in the middle of the season. He's gotten healthy. He's put up bigger power numbers than I was expecting for him. Kingery is up there for breakout prospect of the year for me. He's not only showing the speed that we all knew he had, but he's also showing a lot more power with 20-plus home runs. And both of those guys have moved around the infield a little bit. Kingery is usually a second baseman. Crawford's usually a shortstop. Kingery has moved between second and third. Crawford has moved between short and third. I think he's gotten a few games at second base as well. And the Phillies have done this already this season with Rhys Hoskins. Hoskins got to play left field for a couple games before the Phillies called him up. He's usually a first baseman. So the fact that they gave him that time was kind of a clear signal of, hey, we're ready to bring this guy up because of his bat. We just need to make sure he can handle things defensively and left, which is where we most need him. The fact that they're doing that again with Crawford and Kingery kind of tells me that they're thinking about doing the same thing. Both of those guys a little bit have, more interesting stories, or more complicated stories, than Hoskins did. Hoskins was kind of destroying AAA all year. Kingery started out at AA Reading. Crawford, like I said, had a really difficult time at the beginning of the year, and has really turned himself on late. So if he was to earn a look, it would be because of kind of smaller sample success than Hoskins had. But the Phillies, this has not been a banner year for them by any means. They're kind of really in competition for the number one overall pick. That's kind of what they're going for at this point. So, do they decide to give these guys looks now? Do they decide to just hold them off and, maybe even hold them off till May of next year or June of next year, to deal with some service time stuff? I don't have any inside information into that. The fact that they're moving them around so much kind of tells me that they will be called up. Whether they are or not, it will be very telling about, A, what the Phillies' kind of philosophy with prospects is right now, and B, what their individual plans with those two guys are. I mentioned them as a package. They are not a package necessarily by any means. It's possible only Crawford comes up. It's possible only Kingery comes up. I'm going to be real interested to see how that kind of plays out. Another one I have my eye on is Francisco Mejia. Speaking of, how guys are going to play into races, the Indians are pretty comfortable right now at the top of the American League Central. They look like they're going to win that division for a second year running. They're obviously going to try to compete to get back to the World Series, get over that hump that they found themselves in. They couldn't get over that hump last year against the Cubs. They're going to want all talent on deck. Mejia is on the 40-man. They don't have to make a corresponding move to bring him up in September. He's hitting 300 this year. I think he's got 14 homers, so showing a little bit more pop this year at Double-A Akron. We know the bat is special for any position, but especially catching. He still has some work to do, I think, defensively in terms of framing, in terms of getting comfortable back there, working with staffs. Since he is on the 40-man, since he might be the most talented catcher on that 40-man roster, he has every right, I think, to kind of skip over AAA Columbus and get called up to Cleveland. If they want the most talent they have with them, he's there. He's probably ready for that chance. I think things got a little complicated today, and we'll get into this in a little bit. Mejia was added to the Arizona Fall League. He will be headed to the Fall League, at least as of now. And things got a little interesting because on the official page, he's listed as a catcher. As a roster that was released to some people, he was listed as an infielder. MLB.com's Jordan Bashian reported that wasn't exactly a typo. The Indians plan on working him out at third base as well, to kind of help with his versatility. I'm going to be real interested to see how that works. Bashian also added that just because he's in the Fall League doesn't mean they're not going to call him up. I remember last year the Red Sox did that with Yoan Moncada. He was called up to the majors, but he was also added in the Fall League, I think in the same week, which was kind of fascinating. So they're not necessarily mutually exclusive, but whether one plays into the other, for sure, we'll have to see as we roll into September. I think September 1st is this Friday. And it's not just going to be a floodgate situation. We always have to remember that. Just because September 1st opens, not all of these prospects aren't going to immediately get called up. It can be a trickle process. Some of these guys are going into the minor league playoffs. Their organizations want them to succeed, get a ring, play in meaningful games, that kind of stuff, instead of sit on the bench and get a couple at bats here and there or a couple innings out of the bullpen, whatever. So we can keep our eyes on these things kind of for the next couple of weeks. But that situation in Philly and Mejia's in Cleveland, I think, is going to be very, very interesting.
One of the guys that feels like we've talked about all season, and I guess maybe because we have, but Walker Buehler is a guy that we have discussed time and time again as maybe being somebody who could factor into that race for the Los Angeles Dodgers, who are a team that ran away with the National League West as of basically the middle of June. Buehler has really, really righted the ship in AAA. He started off on a brutal note for the AAA Oklahoma City Dodgers, but really he's kind of gotten himself figured out over the last few weeks. That is a situation where he started the entirety of the season, moved up to AAA, made starts in his first, I believe, 5 outings at the AAA level, and now has come out of the bullpen in his most recent 6. And so are the Dodgers ready now to give him a look at the major league level if he shows over these next few times out that this is consistent, sustained success? Was coming off of Tommy John surgery. So limited in his work last year. This year he's flown through 3 levels, made 5 starts at Rancho Cucamonga in High A, then was bumped up to Tulsa, made 11 starts there. It's now 9 outings at AAA, so his first 3 were in a starting capacity, and then 6 since in relief. The Dodgers continue to graduate guys. They continue to have guys make major impacts. We did not see that really last year with Julio Urias, I think the way that we figured we were going to, and obviously an injury that shut down his season. But is Buehler somebody that we could see factoring into a pitching staff that is going to be getting a healthy Clayton Kershaw back and needs something to get over that hump? The Dodgers have not made it past the National League Championship Series with this recent run of division titles and success that they've had. Maybe that's a guy that you look to. He is not a 40-man member as of right now, so there would need to be a move made there, which would seem unlikely over the next few days, but possibility for somebody like Walker Buehler. I just think we've followed him for so long this year because it seemed like he was such an obvious option of somebody who could go up and make an impact there. And with the way that team has just rolled through the entire summer, it feels like they've got a lot of house money to play with over the next 5 weeks or so, with basically an insurmountable lead in that division.
Yeah, and the way the season's kind of gone for him feels like the dream scenario for the Dodgers.
Right.
This is a dream season for the Dodgers, period. I mean, like they're being talked about as one of the most productive teams in Major League Baseball history. But to kind of cap it off with Walker Buehler, not only just being healthy, but being effective at everywhere he's pitched. and being able to be moved up like this, and then, to probably still have some bullets left in the chamber, because he's moved to a relief role. I'm going to be real interested if they do call him up, if they do end up giving him a start. I know, there were some questions about who was going to start last weekend. Clayton Kershaw made his technical AAA debut, so he's still not technically back. People were asking, is Buehler an option? And the fact that once that kind of line of questioning gets to the major league manager, I'm not saying there's a direct correlation of like he starts thinking, oh yeah, maybe.
Right.
But the fact that it's reached that threshold is kind of telling. So, as much as Buehler is pitching out of the bullpen now, I think that's kind of to get him used to that role and also limit his innings. It would be awesome to see him get an actual start for the Dodgers in a major league setting before the year is out. But yeah, I would say it's a pretty good shot that he's going to be pitching a major league inning at least come this September.
Another one of the guys in that Dodgers system to keep an eye on, I don't think he's going to be an option, but somebody who's had such a good year that it just almost feels like he's too good to be sitting where he's sitting is Wilmer Font. And Wilmer Font was a pretty highly regarded prospect in the Texas Rangers organization for a while, made his big league debut in 2012. That was after missing all of the entire 2011 season following Tommy John surgery. This year, he's made 25 starts for AAA Oklahoma City in that Dodgers system. He has 178 strikeouts against 35 walks and 134 and a third innings pitched. The ERA is at 3.42 in a hitter-friendly league. Oklahoma City obviously is not the launching pad of some of the places in the PCL, but keep an eye on Wilmer Font. I don't know if that's a route the Dodgers would want to go. Again, not a 40-man roster guy, but he's been such a dynamic arm this year in the PCL that it seems like a travesty that he has not gotten a look at the major league level at some point this season, but goes to show you how good the Dodgers have been, and they're swimming in that wealth of starting pitching depth right now, even despite the injuries that they've had to sustain. Strike two this week, Sam. More end-of-season all-star rosters rolling out this week and last week. The Pacific Coast League at the AAA level, AA Texas League, Eastern League, and Southern League, the Class A Advanced Florida State League, and the rookie level Appalachian League. What stands out to you among these all-star groups as the best prospect group among them?
Yeah, I mean, this might be kind of unfair just because I think, we usually lean towards, when we're thinking about best prospects, we like to see guys do well at upper levels. So, guys who are proven performers at AA or AAA tend to be better prospects in our eyes. There are fewer question marks in terms of how they can perform. So when I look at this PCL, all end of season all-star roster, I think about how littered with prospects it is and how exciting it really could be. You look at Ahmed Rosario, as we've said over and over, a top 5 prospect in the game right now. You can make any sort of debate whether he should be number 1 next to Moncada or Gleyber Torres. Willie Calhoun, friend of the podcast, is on there as the second baseman. Christian Walker, who's had a heck of a season. You could certainly talk about him as the best offensive performer in all of the minors this year. 30 plus home runs, 34 home runs to be exact, 112 RBIs, a 992 OPS. Look at Wilmer Font as Tyler mentioned. He's also on this list. Renato Nunez is the DH. Derek Fisher, who's one of the best power/speed guys in the game right now. I mean, you look up and down. It's not just like, oh, this guy, this was a good year for him, but I don't see much for him going forward. These are guys who you are definitely going to see in the major leagues. Some of which, if you haven't already, Rosario is already there. Christian Walker already has major league time. Wilmer Font, like you said, Renato Nunez, who is the DH, is going to be talked about. All the A's are kind of talking about how excited they are to bring him up this year after the season he's had with Nashville. So if you look at this PCL lineup, the IL isn't out yet. I think that's definitely going to be out probably in the next week or so. But you look at this and you think okay, this is going to be a list we could probably talk about in a couple of years and just say it's pretty cool that Willie Calhoun, Ahmed Rosario, Derek Fisher, again, go down the list, we're all on one team at one time. The one that might rival it in my eyes is the Southern League, not because of its top to bottom depth, but just because it has 3 big names that, again, I think we could be talking about in a couple of years. Nick Gordon, shortstop, for the Chattanooga Lookouts. He was honored at the shortstop position there. One of the Twins' top prospects, you put him up there with Steven Gonzalez, who is the top prospect in that system. Gordon, just taking another step in his development. I think he's probably going to be with the Twins at some point next year, probably a midseason call-up for them. Twins a little bit better than expected this year. Adding him to the infield will only make them better. Right-handed pitcher Michael Kopech. He's since been called up to AAA Charlotte. We know he can hit triple digits. He gets rewarded for what was a very strikeout-heavy season. And Colby Allard is the left-handed pitcher, which, again, just continues to fascinate me. He was 19 years old at the beginning of the year, just turned 20 on August 13th. The fact that he pitched the entire season at AA, posted a 3.34 ERA, 124 strikeouts, and 143 innings. A guy who used to have question marks in terms of his health, had some back issues. The fact that he was able to throw 143 innings, period, is kind of exciting. The fact that he was able to have this level of success in what was essentially his age 19 season is really interesting, and to see him rewarded this way just adds another piece to that resume. So if we're looking at the end of season all-star list that came in the last 2 weeks, I think PCL and Southern League are the most exciting for me.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool because with these all-star lists, sometimes it's, that's going to be the best season of a guy's career. The all-star lists are not like our top prospects list that are based on a future major league career potential. So it's cool to see some guys honored who maybe we're not going to talk about, we're not going to hear about down the road. But then there do come, some years in some leagues like this PCL group or the Southern League group where you think there are a whole bunch of bona fide future big leaguers in those groups. And either way, whether you are one or the other, congratulations to everybody named these end-of-season all-star teams, which will finish up over the next week or so, coming out for the rest of the minor league circuits. Strike three this week, Sam, the Arizona Fall League, as you alluded to, naming some rosters. 11 of Major League Baseball's top 100 prospects, according to MLB Pipeline, are headed to the AFL, the showcase offseason circuit that will begin play in October. Who stands out among those to you? We got three guys in the top 22. Victor Robles, who's number 5. Ronald Acuna, your prospect crush, who was number 8, and Mitch Keller, who is number 22. But these are a lot of really good rosters, as they are every year in the AFL.
Yeah, if there was one team I would watch, and now that you've outed me as a Ronald Acuna lover,
I have.
I would say it's the Peoria Javelinas, and I always want to say the Javelinas, but it's definitely Javelinas.
It looks like it should be the Olympic event. The javelin and the javelinas, but it is not, in case you have wondered that about the AFL. It's the javelinas.
And the fact that we usually write them as the JAVS.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, the Javs, the Habs, whatever. Which makes me think we should have all the other teams should be the Haves-nots, but that's okay.
And we also have the Saguaros, the surprise Saguaros, which is SAG, and we write them as SAGS.
Yep.
SAGs.
Yeah.
I guess we don't really say the saws for that. Anyway,
maybe
off
we
into
should
a
have
whole linguistic thing
before October comes and just decide, enough of some of this. Anyway, that Peoria team, I think, is going to be really fascinating, not only because Acuna is there, and this is just another place for him to play, after he started out the year, again, teenager in Class A advanced, then gets moved up to AA, then gets moved up to AAA. He's hit 325 this year between all his stops, 20 homers, 42 steals. This is really, when we talk about the Arizona Fall League, as the prospect finishing school, this is really what this could be for Acuna. And I still wouldn't rule him out from going to Atlanta in September either, just with the way they pushed him. But anyway, the fact that he's there is interesting. But he's not the only interesting outfielder there. Kyle Lewis, Mariners' top prospect, number 47 overall, 11th overall pick last year. He's only played 31 games as of Tuesday when we're recording this at Class A Advanced Modesto. He had a severe right knee injury, torn ACL last year that held him out for the beginning of this year, and then some reoccurrence with some right knee injuries. So he's been held out. For him, this is an opportunity to get more at-bats, but not only that, he is talented enough that he can face this, the pitching that he's going to see in the AFL and really succeed. So it's going to be kind of not only making up for missed time, but kind of a measuring stick for him there as well. And that's just in the outfield, but I'm really interested in this Peoria infield because they've got number 55 overall prospect, Luis Urias, another really young guy, only 20, who's hitting 299 at AA San Antonio this year. He's the only top 100 prospect, but outside of him, Michael Chavis is there, who has 29 home runs. He's the number three Red Sox prospect, excuse me. There's two top draft picks from 2015 and Josh Naylor and Austin Riley. There's Lourdes Gurriel, who's a $22 million signee from the Blue Jays. This Peoria team is just kind of loaded with talent. In a year that, writing down how all these rosters have shaken out so far, no team has more than 3 top 100 overall prospects. Surprise doesn't have any top 100 overall prospects. So I think, there might be some good depth here in terms of how each team is kind of shaken out, and that's the goal for every AFL season. But the way that the bats have kind of clustered in Peoria will make that team kind of a must follow for me every day coming up. Yeah, I think the season starts October 10th. So yeah, in just a month and a half when this starts, I think I'm going to be paying most attention to that Peoria team.
One interesting name on that Peoria roster, Henry Owens, who is a former very highly regarded and highly ranked pitching prospect in the Boston Red Sox organization. Henry Owens will be one of the oldest guys in the league. He's 25, but has really fallen off the map prospect status-wise. We don't often see the AFL used as kind of a reclamation league, and not to say that that's where Henry Owens is in his career, but we've certainly seen his stock drop a lot. When you're 25 and being sent to the AFL, there's usually something very specific that an organization is trying to get you to accomplish, trying to get you to work on. Those stories are sometimes the most fascinating ones in the Arizona Fall League. So if you're a Red Sox fan, something to keep an eye on there. Maybe it's the start of the turnaround for Henry Owens. So that'll do it for this week's edition of Three Strikes on the show before the show. Coming up, we're going to head to the Gulf Coast League and the Pittsburgh Pirates first-round pick in the 2017 Major League Baseball first-year player draft. Shane Baz will join the show from the rookie-level GCL next.
Joining us this week on the Minor League Baseball podcast is Pirates first-round pick and number 3 prospect Shane Baz, calling in from Florida in the Gulf Coast League. Shane, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Season's almost over, but hanging in there. It's been a good year.
Yeah, and we'll get into what your first pro summer has been like. But first things first, I want to get into where you're from. Where things are right now. You're from the Houston area, went to school at Tomball, Texas. Just first off, how is everything at home? How is everybody back in Texas?
Yeah, I'm from Northwest Houston. I'm from the Cypress area, and it's been a lot of flooding. There's over 10,000 houses have been flooded, and 500,000 people have had to evacuate. But luckily, my house isn't in a floodplain, so we're good for right now. I know we haven't had much access to leave, but they're safe and they're dry.
How often are you checking back with family back home on how things are going?
Oh, I mean every hour or so, I'm calling my dad or my mom and ask for updates and stuff, and just making sure that them and my grandparents are okay. My grandparents just live right down the street also.
And for anybody who doesn't know, your Twitter account is the Wizard of Baz, which is a great Twitter account name, by the way. Wizard of Baz, that's Baz, B-A-Z. But on that Twitter page, you shared, you're trying to raise money for the Red Cross, trying to help, with Hurricane Harvey relief. What kind of efforts are you seeing back home with everybody going through it, and what is it like being in Florida, being this far away while this is all going on?
It's weird. I've never spent this much time away from home, obviously, but I've gotten a lot of thank yous and just a lot of just good job, almost respect for what I'm doing, and just trying to make a difference every way I can. Just using the platform that I have, just trying to make a difference.
Yeah, and when you feel like you were first round pick in June, 12th overall to the Pirates, but just a couple months ago you were a high school senior. I mean, when you go through something like this, you become a celebrity in some way. But when you go on, you sign a big signing bonus. What kind of obligation do you feel like you have in that moment when that kind of happens, and then something of this magnitude happens back home?
Oh, it's a whole new responsibility. You become you work for somebody now. You're not just playing for fun. It's still fun, but someone kind of owns you now. You gotta answer to somebody, and you're following directions, and you're held to a whole new standard of class.
And so let's kind of get into what's gotten you to this point in your career. Like I said, you went 12th overall to the Pirates this past June. What was the draft process like for you? Reading some stuff at the beginning of the year, people certainly knew your name, but it seemed like you kind of took a jump this spring, particularly when it came to velocity. What was the whole draft process like for you going into June?
School was the focus initially. My parents wanted me to go to school, and I was on board with school. But as the spring kind of went on, and I made some big jumps because of the work I put in the off season. I worked out for 3 months, 5 days a week. Not necessarily all lifting weights, but just being in the weight room and training and stuff like that made a huge difference. And by the time the draft came around, it was pretty hectic because just the uncertainty of where I was going to go, and luckily everything worked out great.
Yeah, and you talk about all that work you put in, and reading some of your velocities, like I said, you hit like 98 at certain points this spring. When did you kind of feel it kind of kick in, and was that kind of an emphasis point for you to increase your velocity, or how did that kind of work itself out?
Not necessarily just to increase my velocity, but to be less injury prone, to just have an easier delivery, work on my mechanics, and just get stronger. But after my first couple starts, and I was like 92, 94, but I wasn't really airing it out. I knew that I had more in the tank, and I was excited to see what I looked like, mid-season form.
And when did it feel like things had clicked? I know you just said you were a little earlier, you could feel a little bit earlier, but when did it feel like going to TCU wasn't necessarily going to be the top option?
Probably about a month before the draft, maybe a little more, just gathering more information from teams and talking to my agent and just kind of seeing articles and just hearing more information. I knew that it was something I would have to look into for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you mentioned talking to teams, is there a certain interest level you can feel from scouts just by the vocabulary they're using or the amount they're showing up? I know Nolan Ryan was even at a couple of your starts, or at least one,
right.
Being a Texas guy. Is that when it feels special, or what type of discussions do you have with teams when you feel like, okay, this is going to be an early first round thing?
I could tell that some of the teams were really interested, and you would know by who comes to your games, and best pitcher in history of baseball, and he's coming to watch me pitch, and I was just like in shock almost. But yeah, I mean the teams hide their cards pretty well. They're not going to tell you when they pick you until it's your name's up next in the draft. But I mean, you kind of get an idea the way they're talking to your agent or some other way.
Mm-hmm. And did you have any idea that it would be the Pirates? I saw one story on Baseball America that said you kind of had an inkling, and it feels like that's somewhat easy to say after the fact when they're the ones who talk to you and they've been around. But did you get any feeling that the Pirates were giving maybe the most serious interest in you?
I don't know if they had the most serious interest, but I knew that they were really interested, and that teams that were picking before that might not have been as interested. So, I mean, if I would have had to guess before the draft, I don't think I could have named a team or maybe even named a couple of teams, but I knew the Pirates were interested the whole time.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of knowledge did you have of them ahead of time? Obviously, this is a system that's done really well at developing top end pitching talent, whether it's Garrett Cole or Jamison Tyone or guys like Tyler Glasnow have become top prospects in that system in the past. What did you know about them before, and what have you gotten to learn about the system since you joined it?
What I've heard is, I haven't heard a bad thing about them, and I've known that to be true. That they're all about business and developing you as a person, also, and it's tried and true. It's the proof's in the pudding. With the guys that they've put in the big leagues and how well that they've developed their early picks.
And obviously they sent you to the GCL, which, talking to guys before, that's like an environment you're never really prepared for until you're there. You go from high school ball to playing every day and out on a field every day. What has the GCL been like for you so far? What has been the biggest change for you playing in that environment?
I'd say probably just a grind is the only way to say it. You have a game every day. The biggest change for me has been throwing every day. Going from throwing a few days a week in high school to throwing every 5 days and having a bullpen in between starts is just a really big difference on my body and my arm. And I've held up fine, but some guys haven't. They've had to deal with some stuff, but I've been lucky enough to stay injury free and be able to, soak in everything I can here.
Mm-hmm. And when you are working on those, throwing sessions in between and bullpens, like you said, for a guy who's never had to do that before, what exactly are you focusing on in those works?
I've worked on, just making sure that you're getting loose every day and that, it's not just playing to play catch. It's to throw change ups and playing catch and hitting your spot and having a plan every day.
And just going through your kind of scouting report, right now MLB Pipeline has you down for 5 pitches between a fastball, a cutter, slider, curveball, and change. During your time in the GCL, how many of those 5 are you using? Because I know a lot of times guys get into a system and they only want them working on fastball command, or they take away some of the breaking stuff. How many of the 5 pitches that you've had in the past are you still using?
I've kind of merged the cutter and slider into one pitch, more of a power slider, but not throwing a lot of breaking balls, trying to really develop my changeup and into a good offering and trying to dominate my games with fastballs and changeups. Mm-hmm. But I've mixed in breaking balls here and there. I'm still throwing them in bullpens, but the main focus has been the changeup.
And when you say that
fastball command,
yeah, and when you say that cutter and slider have kind of merged, was that your idea? Was that something the Pirates have worked with you on? How'd that kind of come about?
Yeah, that was something I turned into the same pitch during the high school year, just to have it as one offering instead of 2 different ones.
Mm-hmm. And when you talk about working on that changeup, what exactly is the focus with that?
Yeah, I'm just getting comfortable with it. It's such a feel pitch that you got to throw it a lot and have the same feel for your fastball.
And even going back before the draft, some people might, everybody knows you now as a pitcher. You were a 2-way player in high school. Even going through the showcase circuit, you were a 2-way guy. Specifically, I want to ask you about the area code games home run derby, in which you hit 18 home runs in the first round. That's not easy to do anywhere, and specifically in a showcase like that. What was that like? Did you feel any pressure knowing that it was a showcase thing?
I didn't. I was out there just trying to have as much fun as I could. I probably didn't have a good strategy going in because I just used all my bullets in the first round. But I think I set some type of record there. But, I was just out there having fun. All those guys were, and that was probably some of the most fun I've ever had, just during the circuit or playing ball in general.
Yeah, we should probably note that you lost the next round to Jordan Adele, who was a fellow first-round pick.
Yep.
You lost 13-12, which is still pretty good. Yet, 30 home runs over 2 rounds? I don't think anybody's going to –
Oh, yeah. If I was going to lose to anybody, Joe's the guy. he's a unreal hitter, and he ended up winning that. But
Right.
yeah, I love Joe, and all those guys were a blast.
So how much of you still misses batting, and when did you know that, being a two-way player, that was a theme of this draft, was potential two-way players. When did you know you were going to only be in the mound in the pro ranks?
I think towards whenever I started talking to teams, they were just kind of letting me know that my pitching was ahead of my hitting, which I completely agree with. I had the chance to go to 2A in college, but I knew that if I did choose the pro ball route, that it would be to pitch.
Mm-hmm. So is there any part of you that misses playing third and getting to hit, or are you happy with pitching, every fifth, sixth day?
Oh, no, I'm happy with pitching every 5 days, but yeah, sometimes I'll get a little restless in the dugout. I guess I just got to make it up to Double A so I can start swinging it again.
I was going to say, how much does it help to be drafted by an NL organization knowing you're probably going to be hitting at some point down the line?
I think it's just icing on the cake that I will get to swing eventually. But, yeah, I mean, I know that pitching is my bread and butter, but, yeah, I do like to hit too.
Nice. As some people might know or might not know, a former player at your high school at Concordia Lutheran was Cabrian Hayes, who's a first-round pick of the Pirates 2 years before you. How much did you guys get to talk about, the organization or even the draft process beforehand? Him being a high pick, you being a high pick. Now you guys are in the same system.
Yeah, I reached out to him before the draft, and he's an unbelievable guy. We've gotten to chit-chat here and there, and he's given me some really good insight. And, I just can't wait to be able to play with him. He's such an unreal third baseman and really good hitter. And, yeah, it's been cool to have two first-rounders from the same high school to the same team. It's pretty crazy.
And what particular piece of advice did he kind of help you with? Because obviously he knows exactly where you're coming from. He can say, this isn't like we used to do it at home, or this is exactly like we used to do it at home. What piece of advice do you feel like was most helpful?
Just kind of to be yourself, don't try and be someone you're not. Just kind of stay on your path and do what you do.
Mm-hmm. And Shane, we'll leave you on this one. I feel like we always talk to guys about, preparations for the off season. They get to go home. They've been away for a little while longer. This is obviously going to be a special situation for you, going home, and home's going to be a little different when you get back. So what are you looking forward to most about going home when you get back there this off season?
Definitely seeing my family. Family is a big part of what I believe in. God's blessed me with an unbelievable family to support me. But that'll be number one. And then everything else will just be kind of icing on the cake at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what is that area like, or what are you expecting that area to be like when everything is, back to normal or as close to normal as it can be, I guess?
It's a devastating thing, this flooding, but you can always look on a bright side. You can bless people as much as you can, any way you can, and that's what I'm looking forward to. I think that it'll strengthen the entire city. There's so many people helping out that there's just so much support going on, and a lot of prayer will only help the situation.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good spot to leave it on. Shane Baz, thank you so much for joining us. Again, his Twitter account is @TheWizardOfBaz. Can't tell you how great a name that is anymore. And he's helping to raise funds here for the Red Cross for Hurricane Harvey and everybody who's affected by that. That's his pinned tweet right now. Anybody listening, go check that out. Thanks again so much for joining us, Shane, and good luck the rest of the way down there.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Getting down to the final days of minor league promotions in the 2017 season, and Benjamin Hill joins us to discuss some of those that have already passed and that are coming up. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Tyler. Hi, Sam. It's good to be here.
Now, is that an alternative fact? Because that segues us very well.
It segues us segues us perfectly into a discussion of the Erie Seawolves alternative fact night. But what I said was totally truthful,
So you
not
meant
alternative.
it. You meant it that it's good to be here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And everything I'm saying now and will say and have said, there's no alternative about it. It is the truth. I speak the truth always and forever.
Those are all facts, real facts, as opposed to what the Erie Seawolves trotted out on Friday, August 25th.
You're so into the segue, man.
You know, man, it's a radio professionalism in this podcasting world of ours. So the Erie Seawolves hosted Alternative Facts Night at UPMC Park in Erie, home of the Wonders. The Seawolves trotted out. Well, the highlight of the night seemed to be the championship ring for a championship that they did not win in 2016. But there was a lot of stuff that went into this. Give us some of the nuts and bolts of Alternative Facts Night.
Right. Well, this is the last promo watch column of the year, which I write every Tuesday during the season, with occasional Tuesdays missed when I'm on the road and whatnot. But I'm back from the road and was able to sneak one last promo watch column in. And instead of highlighting something coming up this week, I decided to go ahead and look back at a promo that got a lot of attention, and I felt that I wanted to talk to the team and get a little more info on it. Alternative Facts Night in Erie. And it is, and this is tough, and this is why I'm interested in it. You know, I think rightfully so, no matter how we feel about politics, and we all feel something, it seems like, for sure. You don't really mix politics with a minor league baseball promotion very often, if ever, because it can be polarizing and people look at the ballpark as a place to sort of get away from the dissension and all the kind of contentious discourse in society. But the Seawolves said, no, we're going to have some fun with this. It dominates the news. And so they announced way back before the season started, Alternative Facts Night, you know, poking fun at the political landscape. And I would say in particular, the 45th president of the United States, Mr. Donald Trump, President Donald Trump is who he is, and his, propensity for alternative facts, a term I think that was dubbed by Kelly and Conway, one of his advisors. And so they decided, like, hey, let's have some fun with this. Let's give away a championship ring for a championship in which we did not win. In 2016, they went 62-79 and finished like 15 games out of first place. No matter. The alternative fact is that they went 142-0 and won the championship. So they actually gave away, I believe it was 2,000, really nice replica championship rings.
Yeah, they're like really nice looking rings. Like teams do replica championship rings, and this one wasn't even for an actual championship. It looks nicer than a lot of the actual giveaways for teams that really won championships. It's pretty impressive. Yeah, I
mean, they went all in on this, and they had a huge line outside the ballpark for people to get this championship ring from an alternate reality, essentially. And they kind of poked fun at politics throughout the game. They had a message on the scoreboard that said Mexico didn't pay for this wall either, with arrows pointing down to their outfield wall. And they had first pitches from both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. They had a between inning Find Hillary's emails contest where the contestants were blindfolded and had to scour around the field for these confidential documents. They gave away a real-life basket of deplorables, a reference to Hillary Clinton's statement during the campaign.
Which, by the way, is just disgusting.
So they took
stuff they put in this.
They took it literally, and this shows the kind of thought they had. The Seawolves had. They gave away as a prize a basket of deplorables. Not used in a more symbolic or metaphorical way, as Hillary said during the campaign. They just tried to find a bunch of truly deplorable items. So the Seawolves gave this one presumably lucky fan, moth flakes. We got some ham-flavored concentrate. I don't really even know what that is.
Something that's called Squid brand fish sauce.
I like fish sauce. I'm all for fish sauce. I would have taken some of that.
Clam juice.
Clam juice, butter beans, Vienna sausages, a denture bath, a hemorrhoidal ointment, a can of sardines. Again, I'll take sardines any day. One man's deplorable is another man's delight. But, really cool, fun promotion. I talked to Hunter Horenstein, who works for the team. I forget his title. Something like engagement manager. It's some very cool title.
Community engagement manager.
Community engagement manager. But Hunter did a lot of work. I mean, the whole front office did a lot of work on this promotion, but he certainly was one of the main minds behind it. And I talked to him about, what it took to pull it off. And, he said, we were really deliberate in putting this together, really tried to be aware of what the line was and get as close to crossing it as we could without crossing it. And they pulled it off. They had a good crowd. Again, the giveaway was a huge hit. I think crucially, the whole front office was on board, and the owner of the team was on board, Fernando Aguirre. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. I feel like every time I'm on the podcast, there comes at least one person who I say, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. But, the owner was on board, and that's crucial. You don't want – and he was at the game. Allegedly, he was even the one wearing the Trump mask when Trump threw out a first pitch. So, you have to have everyone on board. There have been some controversial promotions this season. I won't get into them, kind of some off-the-record discussions. But, where, maybe ownership of a team was not really aware of what the promo staff is doing or whatnot, and that can lead to a lot of controversy. So when you do something, I think in the scheme of 21st century America, what the Seawolves did is not very controversial at all. But in the world of minor league baseball, you are towing a line. It's a very conservative industry as regards how much you're willing to poke fun at any one side of the political aisle or another. So even though it might have been inspired by Trump primarily, they made sure to poke fun at both sides, have a spirit of fun throughout, and not really go on the attack or come across as overly partisan or bitter. And it looks like they had a great night, pulled it off well, got a ton of press, and again, a great giveaway item that's just based on a really funny concept, and raised a lot of money for charity too. The partnership for Erie schools, because they wore every Friday they wore faux back jerseys, which are really cool looking jerseys, referencing like a period of the team's history which didn't exist, but have that kind of 70s, early 80s aesthetic. So it was the last faux back Friday of the season. They auctioned that off, made a lot of money for charity. So hey, good job to the Seawolves. I've been talking about you for the last 10 minutes. We all have.
With the Seawolves, like with something like this, so many of these promos that have this level of popularity, whether it's national, local, whatever, this becomes a thing every year. Is this something that can only be a one-off because it only happened after the election, or is this something you think they could play with for years going forward?
Well, I mean, obviously a lot of the specific political, cultural references are very much of the year 2017.
Right.
But I think you could certainly, even removing politics largely out of it, I think this concept is basically evergreen, of just saying like, we don't want to adhere to the existing reality. We want to create our own.
Well, who had the conspiracy theory promo?
Yeah, that was kind of similar. That was State College Spikes. They did a Salute to Conspiracy Theories night. And, of course, we see what could have been nights for years all around the minor league landscape. So I think there's a lot of reality altering and reality adjustments taking place. So even if you don't want to go political, I think you could do something along the lines of alternative facts just to create a reality more palatable to what you'd like to see as opposed to what is. That can be dangerous. But for one night, hey, lose your mind a little. Go in another direction. It's cool.
Ben, on the 30th, which is Wednesday, the day that this podcast drops, or the day that we ordinarily record, I should say, the day before it'll be released, the Columbia Fireflies are giving away a Tim Tebow bobblehead. He played 64 games for Columbia at the start of the year, but that kind of brings us to a larger conversation, which regards promotions at the team level for these last couple of weeks of the season. For the example, in Columbia, the Fireflies didn't know at the beginning of the season that Tebow was going to be on that roster, so that's something that more than likely came about after opening day. You have those bobbleheads made. A lot of times that's a complicated process. Teams get those shipped from China sometimes. They get stuck in customs sometimes. Not necessarily the easiest thing to just push a bobblehead promotion through. So teams have to account for stuff like that when you're planning something in a season that's going to come up toward the end of the season. But also toward the end of the season, kids are back in school, people are back from vacation and back to work and all that kind of stuff. Crowds aren't necessarily as big in the late days of August and early September as during the summer. How do teams manage late season promotions like that?
Well, I mean, I was talking to Sam about this earlier in the day, and I think in a lot of ways, the last weekend of the, as we head toward Labor Day and penultimate homestands have become ultimate homestands and final games, and we're really seeing the end. I think sometimes you do feel a little bit of a loss of interest in the team as thoughts shift to fall. And I think teams, for the most part, they don't put their premier stuff at the end of the season to counterbalance the loss of interest. I'm not sure if there's so much, raging against the dying of the light as opposed to sort of an acceptance of like, hey, we've been doing this for 5 straight months, grinding it out just like everybody else. And, the last homestand, the last weekend of the season is, you're going to do some form of fan appreciation. You might do cleaning out the closet type giveaways, give away random things, throw a whole bunch of discounts at the team store, really look to reward like loyal fans and people who've been there. And of course, just speaking to everyone, come out while you still have the chance. But definitely, you don't see as much as the blowout theme nights and the alternate identities based on a food product and X, Y, and Z as here as we approach the end of the year. We're kind of fading out for the most part. And, that's okay. It's a long season, and we'll be right back at it next year. I can't believe we're even talking about the end of the season. Yeah. And here in New York today, it's like rainy and like 60-something degrees. And there's been several times I've had to remind myself it's not the off season. Mm-hmm. It just feels like the off season today. So, hey, it's still the season. Still need some of that summertime energy. It has been kind of a downer day here in New York, but now I'm just rambling.
Well, kind of even looking forward beyond, this just being the last week, there are still playoffs left. They still have to drive people out to those. Do playoff promos ever become a thing, or do you envision a future in which they could be a thing, or is it just this is playoff baseball, it means something, come if you will, don't if you don't?
If you talk to front offices off the record, I mean, a lot of them obviously do end up following their team very closely and very much root for their team to win. But from a business standpoint, there is this kind of eye-rolling sort of like, oh, man, we made it in the playoffs. Like, we're just going to lose a little money now, because it is the irony of minor league baseball is like fans don't go to the games to follow that winning team, and they don't quite care so much in the playoffs. And it's like a Tuesday night and school's in session. It's getting cold and there's football and X, Y, and Z. And the whole nature of minor league baseball, too, is that with the rosters changing and even the ultra absurdities of like a rehabbing major leaguer appearing in a minor league playoff game, or some, backup catchers never played above Class A advanced playing in a AAA playoff game. It's just not the most intense world when it comes to people truly caring about playoffs. Of course, the hardcore fans are going to care. So you don't see too many promotions. One area in which you might see promotions is leagues that have first and second half champions, because then if you win the first half, you actually have enough time to get something on the schedule, to say, oh, we're going to do this certain giveaway item, we're going to do this, and then really try to at least have one of your playoff games be a big blowout or a blowout type promotion, or if not a blowout, at least something that has a little thought into it. And then another thing is a lot of time, there's all these if necessary games, and it's tough to really schedule much around it outside of the few guaranteed games you have in the first round. So for the most part, it's just like, hey, hardcore fans, come out, cheer on your team. But for the most part, you're not going to see playoff crowds of any real size in most minor league towns. The Columbus Clippers, they did a free admission promo, which kind of goes against kind of an industry truism, is like you don't give away your product for free. But I think they did a good job with the playoffs being so weird in minor league baseball, just being like, you know what, we're just going to just try to blow it out and create a true playoff atmosphere within a level of the sport that doesn't really have much excitement for the playoffs. And it worked. They had huge crowds at a big new ballpark in a AAA city. And that would be cool to see. It would be cool to see a town really get behind its team in the playoffs, which usually doesn't happen in minor league baseball. And there isn't really the time and wherewithal and scheduling certainty to really do too much promo-wise around it outside of little things on the fly.
He is Benjamin Hill. What's coming up on the site and the blog, Ben?
I'm still living in the past, but I've got some Wilmington Blue Rocks posts coming up on the blog, and a article coming up on Friday, and then a couple more on the road stories from the Carolinas still in the can, and blog posts as well. And I'm going to try by the end of September to have it all done, so that I'm not writing in October into November about what happened during the season. But at the same time, it's really important for me to get all my stuff out there to be as complete as possible, to tell these stories as best as I can. And then when it's gone, it's gone. And there's a long, dark, cold off season ahead of us.
So you don't have any other Bill Murray truisms saved up?
No, I got
November, something to just squeeze out of that.
I got no more secret Bill Murray content in the can. But if you have not seen, this past Friday, I wrote a feature story about my interview with Bill Murray, talking about his history in minor league baseball and the project he's working on, and his reactions to a post-game helicopter drop. So please check that out. I have a feature story based on my interview with Bill Murray, as well as the video that came up a little before that, where he talks about the eclipse and the apocalypse. And of course, check the pinned tweet on my Twitter account at Ben's Biz, where you will see the endorsement and hear the endorsement, which we all talked about last week. But hey, I'm still talking about it because it's pretty cool. You don't meet Bill Murray very often.
Yeah, exactly. You can tell that story for a very long time. Benjamin Hill, he's on Twitter at Ben's Biz. You can check out the blog, bensbiz.mlblogs.com. And we'll do it again next week. See you, Ben.
Bye, guys.
Big thanks to Benjamin Hill, and again, a big thanks to Shane Baz, the Pittsburgh Pirates system you can find on Twitter at The Wizard of Baz, B-A-Z. And that'll bring us to our final segment for this week's edition of the show before the show. Minor League Baseball postseason coming up, which means the last days of playoff races are here on MILB.TV. Sam, what are you watching?
Yeah, I've got my eye on a 4-game set this weekend, which is going to end the season, actually. Between the Salt Lake Bees and the Fresno Grizzlies. I choose that one because it could have playoff ramifications for both teams. Right now, the Salt Lake Bees lead the Pacific Coast, Pacific Southern division by only 1 game over El Paso. Fresno is 3 games behind Reno in the Pacific Northern division. So both teams trying to scrap it out for a PCL playoff spot. Salt Lake is definitely going to still be playing for something this weekend. There's a possibility that Fresno, as of right now, their magic number to be eliminated is 5. There's a possibility that they could get eliminated before that point. But with both teams going for something, that should be a lot of fun. Names you'll recognize all up and down those rosters. Salt Lake specifically has Michael Hermosillo, who I think has had a really great year this year, climbed 3 levels, has plus speed, but is showing a little bit more power this year than I think he's shown before. He is probably the next Angels prospect to get excited about in terms of making the majors. They do have a lot of talent in that system in the outfield with your Jahmai Joneses, your Joe Adells, et cetera. But Hermosillo is certainly knocking on the door. He looks like he's going to be protected in the Rule 5 draft this year if he does not get added to the 40-man before that with a September look. So he's somebody to get excited about that Salt Lake lineup, that Salt Lake lineup. On the other side, Fresno, they've been strong the last couple of years. Same old faces that you'll see there: Tony Kemp, AJ Reed, Tyler White. The kind of, I won't call them quad A players, but they, the Astros major league roster is so strong right now that those guys are typically stuck at Fresno and can put up some strong performances there. No PCL pitcher wants to go through those guys at the top of Fresno's lineup. So that should make for a fun weekend series, regardless of time of year. But the fact that so much will be on the line this weekend should make it even more fun. So that's what I'm looking at. What about for you, Tyler?
Yeah, I'm going to be in AAA as well over in the International League. And we were talking about guys who maybe could get a look in September. And you and I were both discussing before we started this segment why this isn't a name that more people have talked about. Chance Adams, the right-hander out of Dallas Baptist, 5th-round pick in 2015 in the New York Yankees organization, has been nothing but outstanding in his minor league career over the last couple of seasons. This year started the year 4-0, a 1.03 ERA through 6 starts with Double-A Trenton. Made the jump to Scranton Wilkes-Barre, 20 starts there, an ERA of 2.63 and 11-4 mark. Scranton Wilkes-Barre has already clinched the International League North Division title, so they are headed to the postseason. Adams will make his start today. If you're listening on the day that we release the podcast, Thursday, August 31st, he is scheduled to go against Rochester at 7:05 Eastern time, but he has been fantastic all year long, and maybe that's another name that we'll be discussing in a major league capacity pretty soon. But as of right now, scheduled to go on Thursday for the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Rail Riders. So that'll do it for the 125th episode of the show before the show. Did I miss anything?
No, that's
okay.
it. Good. No. That's it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good then.
And 125 just feels like such a nice round number. That
yeah, it does. We've had a couple of those lately.
I'm sure it's some sort of anniversary that I just can't think of. But yeah, no, possible. It's a nice round one to go into what's going to be the last pot of the season, the regular season next week.
Yeah, which is insane. I do want to throw out one shameless plug. If you are excited about prospects for the 2018 Major League Baseball first-year player draft, starting on Friday, September 1st through September 10th, the 2017 U18 Baseball World Cup will be going on in Thunder Bay, Ontario. It's a shameless plug because I'll be on the broadcast for those games, but they'll be live on YouTube. There are a ton of Major League prospects on all of these rosters for the 12 nations that are involved, especially this U.S. roster, which I believe has 8 of MLB.com's top 10 2018 high school prospects. For this roster, they've won 3 straight The U.S. is looking to be the second country to ever win 4 straight U18 World Cups. But the guys that are on this roster, Will Banfield, the catcher, Tristan Cassis, who is a tremendous power prospect, the first baseman / pitcher, Bryce Turing, the shortstop, who so many people believe is going to be the number 1 pick in the 2018 draft. Just talent after talent after talent. Jared Kelenic, who's an outfielder. My favorite name, Kumar Rocker, right-handed pitcher. Ethan Hankins, who is a top 5, consensus top 5 high school prospect for 2018. So if you're interested in getting a jump on who future guests of the Show Before the Show podcast could very well be, then tune in next week. We'll have some fun from Thunder Bay, Ontario. So thanks for humoring me with my shameless self-promotion.
Yeah, we'll have to cut that. Remember those guys you just mentioned, and if they come back on the show, we'll just play that at the beginning of the episode next year.
And we'll say we've already talked about you on this show.
Yeah,
Ethan Hankins.
We mentioned your name before you were in
we mentioned your name in August of 2017. We were on this bandwagon super early.
Yeah, you creeps, get the hell away from
Should be good. It'll be fun. So we'll have another international edition of the podcast coming up next week, but it's only over a short border this time around. So until then, when we start into the minor league postseason coming up next week, which is insane to me, he's Sam Dykstra. I'm Tyler Maughan. We'll talk to you then.